Today we're talking about the Enneagram again, following up on the topic that we started last week. And this time we will be approaching the head or thinking triad. Last week we discussed about the heart triad, so Enneagram types 2, 3, and 4. And today we're moving on to the next group, types 5, 6, and 7. What they have in common, but at the same time what makes them different from each other. So tune in for that. We will be discussing about this in the next few minutes. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and let's dive in. So, what do these three types have in common? Well, similarly to the other group, in this case, we've got a group of types that primarily focuses on not feeling fear or anxiety. If in the first category we've got types that do not want to feel shame or embarrassment, this time we're talking about types that really do not want to experience the negative feeling of anxiety. So of course it goes without saying that the actual motivation that these three types have is to get away from that feeling of not being safe, of not having this blanket of security that kind of supports them, okay? So basically, because they're trying to get rid of that anxiety, of that fear, it will be increasingly important to them to find a way to manage that pressure that comes from that potential lack of security or lack of safety. When it comes to the Enneagram 5, also called the Investigator, the mechanism that this type uses in order to get rid of that anxiety or fear is research and knowledge. Usually these people are very focused on trying to understand a topic of interest, usually to them, as well as possible. They want to go in depth. They want to study and research as much as they possibly can about that, because by doing that, they acknowledge the fact that they will be safe because they are needed. And the thing that they're good at, or the thing that they are learning, is something that they can put into the world in such a way that other people can also kind of, make use of that. They tend to be quite introverted people, and if we are to correlate with MBTI, Enneagram 5 usually is found among introverted and thinking types, not necessarily TI types, but types that are both introverted and have a preference for thinking. Sometimes it can also be found among INFJs or INFPs or ENTPs, even ESTPs sometimes, but most of the time, let's say 80% of cases, tend to be one of the four: INTJ, ISTJ, ISTP, or INTP. That's because usually type 5 is very introverted, quite withdrawn, has difficulty expressing emotions and focusing on emotions in general, of themselves or of other people. They're a thinking type, Enneagram 5, so these people tend to kind of live in their mind and prefer a logical approach to things. As I said, they can be quite studious and focused on absorbing as much knowledge as they possibly can in order to become those people that are reliable experts in a field. And usually the core issue here is that in their childhood they might have had an issue with not feeling that their needs were met, maybe by their parents, caregivers, or for other reasons, okay? And because they did not feel that, they grew up with a belief that only themselves could cater for their own needs, for their own problems, and so on and so forth. And it is extremely important for these people to kind of be cerebral about how things are, to analyze, to research, to be able to say that, okay, I can really rely on this knowledge that I have gathered over time. Okay, moving on to type 6. This is the center of the head triad, and it is also called or said to be the most anxious types of all, because it is basically in the middle of the anxiety group. And what happens here is that Enneagram type 6 is always in search for security in the utmost possible form of security. They are called or said to be the most reliable people, the loyalists, as a lot of perspectives call them. They are the people that really place a high importance on making themselves useful to other people. They usually want to make sure that they do everything right. Wherever they are, relationships, work, or anything else, they want to make sure that they fulfill their duties, that they complete all of the tasks, that they are the people that their friends and family and co-workers can depend on. And the inner thing here is that they really want that support in return, because they tend to doubt things a lot. They tend to question things a lot. They're also very skeptical people, and that's because they really want to avoid negative potential consequences in the future, and they're very anxious about those negative things threatening their safety. So they will do everything in their power to kind of deal with that pressure that they put on themselves by making sure that they do everything in their power to actually finish the tasks or help the people or get involved in the best way possible, because their inner process is that, well, if I do everything my boss asks me to do, or everything my boss might even expect me to do without saying it, then it is much more likely that my boss won't fire me. And the idea that my boss might fire me is really terrifying to me, because I need to feel safe at my job. I need to have, I don't know, security here, to have an income or something like that. Or they might really want to do everything in their power to satisfy what their friends expect of them in the group of friends, like helping them with something or being there for them or something. Because again, their inner mechanism is that, well, if I actually do all of these things for other people and I do everything that they expect of me, it's less likely that, I don't know, I will lose them as friends. And the potential of losing them as friends makes me feel so anxious that I will try to do everything in my power to prevent that from happening. So this is usually the mechanism that type 6 employs, and something that really guides their life. And because they're so skeptical and they doubt everything so much, they really need other people to give them that reassurance that things will be okay, that they will not be abandoned, that they won't lose their job, that their friends won't leave them. It is extremely important. It is essential to their well-functioning, at least in lower levels of development or average levels. And now moving on to type 7, the enthusiast. This is one of the most positive types in the Enneagram, and people oftentimes have difficulty believing that type 7 is also an anxiety type or a fear type, because they're so excited and optimistic. They like looking into the future. They really like exploring new opportunities, new possibilities. This is a very common type among high SE or NE users. But also could be among ENTJs and ENFJs sometimes, making their SE child a little bit more active, let's say. But usually ESTPs, ESFPs, ENTPs, ENFPs tend to be in this category quite a lot. The NE hero types, so ENTPs and ENFPs, they really go with the flow with their extroverted intuition, willing to explore as many new ideas as possible. Whereas high SE types, ESTPs, ESFPs use this Enneagram 7 energy to get access to as many new physical, concrete experiences as possible. They are the people who like looking to the future in an optimistic fashion and kind of imagining positive outcomes. But the truth is that their fear resides in the missing out of opportunities. They really hate the idea that they might miss out on something better, more exciting, more interesting, more useful. That they might miss out on making new friends or traveling to a place or getting a better job or a better experience. And because of that thirst for new stuff, new experiences or new ideas, they might have difficulty sticking in the moment and dealing with the negative emotions that the moment might imply. And this fear of missing out makes them have this continuous movement It's as if they're like stuck on this loop where they're going forward, but actually they're coming backwards because a lot of the projects that they're starting fail to be taken to completion. ESTPs might be a bit better at it compared to the other types that I've mentioned, ENTPs, ENFPs, or ESFPs, because they might have a little bit more discipline in this, but still, there is some difficulty there. And because of this deep fear that something will actually not work out for them and that they will not have the things that they need, this anxiety fuels them to continuously explore new things. And that on the one hand is amazing because they fill up the life of others with joy and beauty and optimism. But at the same time, it can make them kind of be in denial when it comes to negative emotions, and they might have difficulty dealing with it. So this is a broad overview of types 5, 6, and 7, the 3 types that are part of the thinking triad. The triad that lives primarily in their head, trying to avoid fear or anxiety. Types who find different strategies to keep themselves safe. So share your thoughts below. Are you one of these types, or do you know anyone of this type? And what did you notice about these issues with anxiety and fear? Let me know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to like and subscribe, and see you next week with another video on the Enneagram.